Hey, what's up? Hope everyone's doing all right. So we are on what are we? Week 6. So the readings for this week is Leviticus 16 through Numbers 4. And so remember, if we read the Bible in 50 different parts, and we break it up in about 14 pages for my Bible, but different sections that I have right here, then we get through the Bible in 50 weeks. So 1 year, if you go for the first year, or the first week of the year, and then you just read um, these sections for 50 times, and you get through the Bible from cover to cover. And so that's the goal. And we did this last year. I read through the Bible a few times the last couple of years. But last year was the first time I did it through January all the way to the end. And this is the second time that I'm doing it. And so Leviticus 16 and Numbers 4. So now you have Moses, and he's taking the children of Israel through the wilderness to the promised land. And so at this point, they haven't been told that they're going to wander in the wilderness for 70 years yet, because they haven't come to the land. And then they don't have the faith that they can take over the land, and so they have to wander until all of that generation dies out, and then no generation that didn't have the faith is there, and the other generation can go through, and that's Joshua leads them for it. Except for Joshua. Joshua has the faith. He's the one that scouted the land and came back. I think Joshua and one other person. And so, but then this right here, you have them wandering through the wilderness, and then God gives them the laws and his precepts that He wants them to follow. And when He gives them these laws, a lot of it is just it's just good for the people. And God gives Moses the law, and what they're supposed to do with their tithes, with their offerings. The year of the Jubile. A lot of different rules. It's pretty much the law, the Jewish law that they give, the Leviticus law, or the laws of Moses. I forget what they say. Um, and so each day of the week, I have a certain section that I think about that's in the reading, and I try to think about those sections during that day and try to reflect on it, especially if my mind starts wandering. And so I didn't actually do very well this week. My mind was preoccupied by things it probably shouldn't have been. And so this wasn't a perfect week for me. The last couple of weeks, I feel like it's been pretty flawed for me, and there's a lot of sin that I've been doing. And I'm just trying to change some things, and changing the things that I'm doing has brought me to like a place that I don't really know if it was where I should be, but there's definitely I'm not able to do very well in this place that I'm at right now. So I'm trying to change this place again and try to go to a different, not like a physical place, but just kind of like a way that I'm handling my surroundings and what I'm doing. So I don't really want to get too into it, but when you are in a situation that is not good for you and it's sinful, or then you want to change that situation and find a better situation. And for me, I changed the situation I was in, and I found, I don't know if it was a worse situation, but it's a different situation. And so I keep on moving until I find, like a routine and a way of living where I feel like it's where I should be. And so I'm moving from one area of kind of what I'm doing into a different area, and along the way, I'm running into some places that I shouldn't be, so I just keep on moving. And I think, I really want to do my pilot's license stuff, and for my son too. And so I got a bunch of that stuff kind of squared away today, and I made some investments on that. So hopefully I can have a routine that's surrounded around that, and that can be the place that I want to be. But yeah, I just gotta keep moving, and gotta keep trying new things. And so for Monday, then the main thing that I have was Israelites are not to do what the people did in the land before them. And so, God talks about, okay, the people were horrible. They, seemed to be, or they slept with the animals. The men slept with other men. They committed all kinds of atrocities in the land. They seem to, or they worship devils, and they did other things that were not good, contrary to God's law and God's way of being. And so the land spewed them out. And so the Jews are not to do neither what the Egyptians did before them, and not to do what the people that are in the land that they're going to conquer to do. And it's interesting because God says, I don't want to just destroy the land altogether, because then if I destroy the land altogether and then you come to take over it, then in the meantime the beasts are going to take over the beasts of the field. And so slowly by little, you're supposed to take over the land, and that's what the Jews do. But it's really difficult for them not to take in the customs and the tributes, and that kind of the things that the people in the land before them did. And it's also hard for them to shed off the things that the Egyptians did. And so they have to learn new laws and new ways of doing things in God's laws. and not to do the laws of the land. And it's interesting because it says the land spewed them out. And so, you have the Old Testament. It's okay, well, we're not bound by the Jewish law, but this gives us a good demonstration or a good idea of what happens when people don't follow what God wants them to do in the land. Just literally spew them out. And I think that that's still as true today as it was back then. And so Tuesday I have thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And so this is a law that was given, the Mosaic laws, as they're called, the Mosaic laws. And this was given to the Jews, and this is one of the things that, or this is the thing that, love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love thy neighbor as thyself. And this sums up the law and the prophets. This is what Jesus talks about. And it's interesting because this is, all the way back in the Mosaic laws. And it's interesting to read it. You read over a lot of people read the New Testament. It's a lot easier to read, I think. And so a lot of people read that one. But then to read it and see where Jesus actually references this is pretty cool. And you can see that how God talks to his people and how he wants them to love his neighbor as himself. And, gives like these laws to the neighbor, if you, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, don't sleep with your neighbor's wife, don't kill your neighbor, don't bear false witness, don't lie to your neighbor, just like, love the neighbor as yourself. And so this has kind of had to have been explained. It seems to be, at least this had to be explained like, piece by piece, because the people didn't really quite understand it. But then after the Mosaic laws, and then Israel lives, and then the people around them live, and then Jesus can explain it to them. Okay, you have these laws, but this is, you can see this is just summed up as this one right here, and they can kind of see that. And then so Wednesday, I had the Feast of the Lord, and so you have like these, you have these celebrations, right? Celebrations of God. And so like now we don't really have celebrations, because I think that what happens is you don't want parties. You don't want like a party to God, but you want a celebration. And so the difference between a celebration and a party, and there's a fine line between a celebration and between a party. But a party, is more about having fun, just pleasure for the sake of pleasure, and celebrating is getting enjoyment out of what God has given to us. And so you have enjoyment and gratitude of what God has done, but you get enjoyment out of it. And a party, it just seems to be a pleasure for the sake of pleasure. So we don't want to be partying for God, but we do want to be having celebrations. And I think this is one thing that's lacking in the Christian community, is we don't have these celebrations, because it's really hard to have a celebration but not have a party. And so hopefully that we can implement this, and we can try to have celebrations and not parties. And so hopefully that's what the church can bring forward. And so Thursday I had Jubilee. And so it's interesting, because Jubilee, it seems to be like every I don't know, 50 years, 49 years, it seems to be that everybody in the year of the Jubilee, everything is given back to pretty much everybody, right? Like if you were sold as a slave, if you sold your land, like everything is given back to your family. So everything is like returned back. And so you don't have this thing where one family or one person or one family gets all the law or all the land and all the power. And you don't have like this desire to get all the power and get all the land, because that in 50 years you're gonna have to give it back anyways. So you don't have this thing of, where, okay, I just want to try to accumulate all that I can, because I'm going to keep it forever, and my family going to keep it forever, and so therefore, like, I keep it forever. You don't have this temptation, because everything's going to be returned in 49 years anyways. And this is, a good way of being. Now we just have it to where, not everything is not returned. And I think that the way that things are structured right now is flawed. What is the solution to it? That's a different video for a different time. And I think sometimes what is the solutions that are possible are presented to us, because then we can't argue. We can't argue for the solution, because it's not presented to us, and so we don't have like a way of seeing it, and we don't have a way of, okay, well, this is what the solution is, because this is what happened. But we can look into the Bible, and we can see this is a solution of everything being returned to the families within 50 years. And I think this is it's a good solution. I think it's good. It's an example of something that works and that God wants. And how that would go about today, is interesting. But I mean, it can be thought about, and it can be implemented in the way that the rules and the laws are today, to give some kind of idea back to this. I think that taxing taxing a land is pretty. There's no taxes for how much land that you have, and having to pay for land that's already yours to the government. I think it's just a really flawed way of being. I don't think that you should be paying taxes on a house. I just think that's silly. I mean, even if you had land that you can go to, you can build upon it, but not having any land and just having to be moving around is not beneficial for anybody. It makes it so that places that are well desired people go to, and places that are not well desired, then they just become more and more in ruin. And you have like this migration of people trying to chase the best areas to be in, and the areas that can be good, the best leave. And so it's like left in the squalor because they chase these opportunities because or because they have nowhere else to go to. And people, I think, and you lose like your friendships, and you lose those kind of bonds that you get when you're younger, because everyone just kind of leaving from place to place, and it's so easy to leave instead of just kind of stay where you're at. And I think there's more benefits in kind of staying where you're at. There's some negatives to it too, but I think it's mostly beneficial if everybody kind of does it. And but now people just kind of leave. You don't ever own the land, and it's for whatever reason it just seems to be what the authority wants right now, at least. But that's, like I said, that's a whole different video, and there's so much there that has to be addressed. And so that's just like that's just getting lost in the weeds. And so Friday, there's tithes. This is the thing. So today's Friday, and so we're thinking about tithes. And tithes, what they had in the Old Testament is pretty much the same as we have right now with taxes. Tithes are forced, right? Because you have taxes you have to pay, and you got to pay your sales tax, and you got to pay the land tax, and you have to pay all the different taxes on your income that you get. And so we get taxed pretty high. And so those are pretty much the taxes of the land, right? Because you give to the government at the time, and you give your taxes. And so that's what we kind of have now. But now we want to give to the poor. So we had taxes, and we have giving to the poor, and so it's a little bit different. But this back then, the tithes are pretty much just seems to be at least just taxes. A different way of doing it, because you're not giving it to the people, you're giving it to God. And I think that why you have the word tithe instead of tax is because this makes it seem like the government is, if you say, okay, you need to tax the people, then it makes it seem like the government has the authority and the government has the right to take money from the people. But when you say tithe, you're reminding the people that are in charge, the people that are in the government, that the money is for God. It's not for them, it's for God. And so people giving their money to God, they're not giving their money to the people. So it eliminates this entitlement the government feels about money that needs to be given to them. And especially if they use the word tax, then they can just like really, okay, God says you deserve to give us money. But they're not giving the government money, they're giving God money. And the people that are in charge are supposed to do with the money and the tithes what God wants them to, not what they want to do. And so that's the difference between tithing and taxing. And so tithing is a good system, taxing is a bad system. Because once again, it gives the authority to the government to think that the people are supposed to give them money. And maybe it's not a bad system, but it's a bad system where you have where God wants you to do this, right? You say God wants me to take money from the people, and that's like my thing is to take, that's my job, but it's my divine right. And so you don't want to give divine right of taxes. Maybe taxes aren't a bad thing. Taxes, they're a good thing, but tithing is a divine thing that God wants, and you're supposed to do that. But you're supposed to give with a cheerful heart. And if you're in a situation where you're not giving with a cheerful heart, then this might be money that you should not be giving. You're giving it to the wrong thing. And there's a reason you're not giving with a cheerful heart, because it's not the right thing to be doing. You're giving money just because you think God wants you to, but you're giving it to bad people. And so right now I'm not giving any money away to anybody, really. And that's because any money I feel like I give away, I'm giving away to the wrong people, and they just use it for evil intentions. So I'm not tithing right now. I'm not giving any money really away to anybody. Just because whenever I do, I have this bad feeling. And I think it's because the money that I'm giving is being used for evil purposes, and it's not being used for the right purposes. Oh man, I had a really good thought that I had today that I really wanted to share. What was it about? It was about Jubile, about tithes. I guess it's just not meant for this video. It's something that I should reflect on. But I hope everyone's doing okay, and God bless and happy truth seeking.